Is this okay? Can you hear me? Good? That works? Cool. Amazing. Okay. Well, this is very exciting.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your current role here at the Dark Brotherhood?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm the Sanctuary's first HR hire, which obviously is a huge honor, but also that means that I inherited quite a bit of paperwork to catch up on as soon as I joined. And I've been here for 4 years. So basically, I am a one-woman show. Anything you can think of that kind of falls under HR, I do it all. Onboardings, offboardings, benefits, payroll, vacations, contracts, all of that stuff. But also, since it's quite a small team, sometimes, if I have the time, I just pick up the phones or act as a bit of a customer support representative. Or, sometimes I even have to dabble in operations a little bit just to cover somebody's shift or, just help the team out. So, in that sense, it is a little bit like a startup, meaning you have to wear many hats. You have to get your hands dirty, if you know what I mean.
How did you first come to work here? Was it a referral or more of a divine calling?
Oh, that's actually a funny story. So, I used to be an alchemist in Riften, and I was not a very good alchemist. I can tell you that much. I was an apprentice when I botched a very mild healing potion, and the next thing I know, I woke up to, the note, just the black hand, no sender, no address. And yeah, what I did is I went to open day as one does. I nailed the interview, but I actually failed the basic training twice because the training is really intense. So, when that happened, they were just like, hey, do you have any prior work experience before you became an alchemist? And yeah, that's when I told them about the HR internship I did while I was in college. And they were like, perfect. We needed an HR person either way. So that's how I became an HR for the Dark Brotherhood.
What attracted you to the Dark Brotherhood as an employer?
Oh, hands down, the benefits and the work-life balance. They're unmatched across the industry. And honestly, on top of that, Sithis and the Night Mother are visionary leaders. They have also proven to be very stable over the years, which is not something I can say for my previous companies. The middle management here, though, it kind of rotates. It's a hit or miss, really. But finally, the company also offered to relocate me and my family to Falkreath, which is something that I really appreciated because Falkreath is a great school district and also has some wonderful, bogside walking trails, which my husband and I really enjoy.
What does a typical day look like for you?
So first we have the morning stand-up with the entire ops team. That's me, the IT guy, the finance lady, and sometimes the person from legal also joins us. We discuss any onboardings, offboardings, blockers if we have them for that day. Afterwards, I usually have coffee with Festus Krex, where I drink and he just glares at me because he literally never forgave me for that 1 cup of Nescafe I brought him on my first day. Then I usually tackle anything that I have to do that day, like contracts, PTO requests. I, chase Armbjorn for onboarding updates, update the Black Door password list. Sometimes, someone asks me to cover their shift if they're sick or something. So on occasion, I go out and do a little bit of field work. But I really try to avoid that because it usually ends up being really messy. Oh, and lately I've been facilitating the Wellness in the Void initiative, which is when Lucien Lachance guides a meditation session. Towards the end of the day, it's usually around 30 minutes for everybody in the sanctuary. And I've gotten really positive feedback on that so far.
You remember your first day here? What stood out the most?
Oh, wow. That was so long. I honestly barely remember my first day. I think what stood out the most is all the colorful characters that I encountered on my first day. Babette offered me a snack or told me I was a snack. I can't remember right now. Astrid immediately told me I was on thin ice. And she wasn't even a manager back then, so that was weird. And Arnbjorn tried to sell me some enchanted coffee mugs. But all in all, it really felt welcoming in a way that I can't quite describe, to be honest.
How would you describe your onboarding experience? Was there an orientation, a welcome scroll, something like that?
No, no, not really. When I first joined, they just kind of tossed me a knife and said, make it work, which was a little bit jarring, not gonna lie, but it made me really truly appreciate what a good onboarding can do for a new hire. So that was one of the first projects I tackled here, actually, is just coming up with a week full of onboarding programming for the new hires so we can set them up for success. And since I've implemented and refined that program like almost 4 years ago, I've seen a 15% decrease in the new hire fail rate year over year, which is amazing. And that's one of my biggest accomplishments, I want to say.
What skills or experience did you bring to the role that you feel have been most valuable?
Honestly, just my organizational skills. They had no system for anything before I joined. I made them implement Asana, track contracts, conduct performance reviews, onboard and offboard people properly. If you can believe it, the Dark Brotherhood wasn't even SOC 2 certified until about 2 years ago. All that confidential data on contracts and employees just scattered around, I shiver when I think of that. Other than that, I am pretty good at conflict resolution, risk management, and I am immune to most poisons now. But I think that's true for all HR professionals, so no superpowers there.
What's your favorite part of working here at the sanctuary? What's your least favorite?
Great question. So my favorite part here is probably the people, the team. They are really just, exceptionally talented, hardworking, high performers. It's really like being a part of this elite little group. That said, what I don't enjoy, I don't think, is Astrid's strategic planning sessions, which usually just kind of turn out to be about an hour to an hour and a half of all of us in a room staring at one another while she monologues about dominance and loyalty. So yeah.
Do you feel synthesis presence in the workplace day to day, or is it more of a guiding principle?
Both, definitely both. Sythis is everywhere, especially during performance reviews.
How do you unwind after a long day of contracts and moving the Night Mother's coffin around?
Well, just like any other person would, I play with my kids, I walk with my husband around the bogs. If we're feeling adventuristic and we have a babysitter, maybe we go out for a meet at the tavern. But yeah, that said, the Brotherhood is really great about that. So, when I clock out at 5 p.m., there are no Slack pings, no phone calls, nobody's bugging me until the next day. I get to really, log off and check out for the day, which is a really refreshing change after that godforsaken alchemy shop.
On a scale of 1 to Black Sacrament, how do you handle conflict with your coworkers?
Yeah, rarely, if ever, is there actual conflict. So a couple of years ago, I've implemented what I call a continuous feedback session, which we do once every quarter, and it's for the entire team. So while the sessions sometimes do get a little bit heated, it very rarely escalates past a death stare on the hallway. I want to say people here are really good about, open, honest, and constructive communication.
There's a lot of talk about family here. Would you say that's accurate or more of a branding decision?
That kind of gives me the ick when companies do that, call their, employees a family or whatever. But here at the Dark Brotherhood, we actually do take a blood oath all together at least once a month. So I guess it's more true here than at your average company.
What's it like working under Astrid's leadership?
I've had better managers. That's all I'm willing to say on record.
Do you feel there's room for growth here? Professionally, not spiritually.
I'm not sure, honestly. A company this size doesn't really need many more HR people, but I would love to be in middle management, less field work, more process optimization. We'll see, I guess. Time will tell.
Would you say Lucien Lachance's ghost presence is helpful or more of an HR violation?
Oh, he is one of my favorite Summon co-workers. I just love having him around. He does get a little bit ranty sometimes, but I think that's totally understandable, knowing what happened to him towards the end of his life. So yeah, he actually helped me revamp a lot of processes around here. For example, we now do extensive background checks on candidates before they join. Like, you wouldn't believe how extensive. Our checker bill is through the roof every month. But you know what? We haven't had a reduction in force ever since that whole mess with Matthew Bellamont. I think it's worth it.
Walk me through a typical onboarding experience for a new initiate. Are there handbooks, live targets, anything?
Yeah, yeah. So we have a really structured onboarding program which is aimed at, setting new hires up for success. And first of all, we have 2 weeks of basic training, which is actually really intense, and some of the recruits, they don't make it through. Some literally don't make it through, but others just fail the training. And I want to say about 10 to 15% make it successfully through the entire 2 weeks. So at that point, we assign them the different roles. Obviously, like if they were successful, they get to be an assassin. But if not, they either get buried or they get assigned to HR, finance, IT compliance, like whichever department needs, people. Or if they had any experience with anything before, they get assigned to kind of, help out with those types of tasks. But then when the training is over and they get roles assigned, everybody goes through the same company onboarding, which is a week-long, program of Loom sessions, Google Meet meetings, live meetings, planning sessions, stuff like that. And we really try to, get them up to speed with everything that's been happening lately at the Brotherhood and just give them all the tools to succeed in their roles. Obviously, that means there's a 30, 60, 90 plan, regular one-on-one meetings with their manager, continuous feedback sessions, as I mentioned. So yeah, we really try to make sure that everybody thrives here.
How do performance reviews work? Is it metrics based or more mystical?
It's totally metrics based. Sithis and the Night Mother are really involved in the process, and there's little room for bias or speculation. Everybody has really strict quotas they need to meet, and that's basically all we look at during performance reviews. What can I tell you? Sithis loves numbers.
Are the contracts flexible?
No, no, not really.
How do you track time off? Or is all time synthesis time?
We track time off through Rippling, our HR system, and it's been working well so far. But I can tell you that the people here are really, deeply invested in their roles. So it's not uncommon that somebody's on PTO and they just, see the opportunity to, finish a contract. So, if something like that happens, we always give them some PTO back.